Welcome back to the Me Podcast with your host, Daniel Bryant. In today's episode of the Athlete in Me series, we have a special guest, my coach, a friend, a mentor to me, Coach Block. Coach Block owns his own business right now. He coaches football. He's coached football on all levels. And now I have him on my podcast to ask him a few questions. So without further ado, let's add him to the call.
What's up,
Coach Block? How you doing, man?
How you doing, man?
Man, I had to get you on the podcast. You were right there at the top of the list of people that I had to get.
All right.
Since I was at Enloe until even now after I graduate, you've always been someone I can go back to, ask questions, and talk to. So it was a must that you were on the podcast.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me. It feels weird that you asking me questions, but it is fun. Let's do it.
All right, and I got some good questions, so let's get into it.
All right.
So for my first question, with this being an Athlete in Me series, I always want to get the background of the athlete or coach that I'm interviewing. So I just want you to go a little bit in detail about your background in sports as a child and then growing up to even as an adult. How was athletes to you?
Okay. Well, I mean, originally, man, I started out playing the drums, which was kind of crazy. A lot of people don't know that. And my mom had me in a whole bunch of different activities. So it was the drums, it was football, basketball, and she just got tired of taking me from place to place. So she told me I had to pick one, and this was like about the age of 8. She told me to pick two. So I dropped the drums and I started playing football and basketball full time. And so I've been playing football since I was 8. And when I was pretty good. I started out as a lineman, which is why I got an attitude of, respect the line. Started out as a husky little lineman dude, always trying to make weight. Then next thing you know, I was pretty decent. My dad seen I was pretty decent, and I ended up moving up. And so I was 11 years old playing with 13, 14-year-old guys, and I was pretty decent. And I always was a lineman until I ended up getting into high school, man. So I was a lineman first string in middle league, but then I was also a backup fullback when I was younger. And that's when I figured out that they put some of the better blockers, no matter who you are, at offensive line and defensive line. So that's what I played. Got to high school, man, and had a pretty decent career in high school, man. I was pretty decent. I was about 220 ran a 4.5 40, and was pretty good. I got recruited by some schools: Michigan, Virginia Tech, what else? Notre Dame were schools that I had, but I didn't have the confidence to go. So I took visits and everything like that and did all the stuff that I tell you guys to do, and I didn't have the confidence. I literally came out the tunnel with Charles Woodson and those guys when they were there. It just blew my mind. 100-something thousand people in the stands, and I was like, man, I'm not good enough to be here. So I went on a Black College tour, man, and ended up going to an HBCU. I went to Winston-Salem from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. I went to Winston-Salem University and flaked out of there because academically I was good, but off the field, and I did a lot of crazy stuff. So I ended up having to go back home. So I went back home to Duquesne University, man, and from there, my football career was spotty at best, man, just because the psychological part of being back home messed with me, man. And I ended up not having the career I wanted to have. I played a little bit, but then I had a daughter, which is my daughter, Deanna. And then from that point, I had to make a choice of football or take care of my child. And I chose to take care of my child. And so that's kind of when my football career ended at that point, man, as a junior in college.
I think that's great. You went all the way back from where you started playing when you were younger and how you moved up. Even you switching from lineman to a little bit of skill position, getting the ball. I wish I could have gotten the ball, coach, at least one time, but we'll say that. But I think the most important thing was that you went on. You had priorities. Things that were more important. You taking care of your daughter. You had to make
Mhm.
that tough decision.
Yeah.
If you were going to put down your football career, but there's certain things that's going to over trump everything. Family, your daughter, things like that. That's always going to take priority. So I'm glad that you
Mhm.
made that decision, and even at a young age, you were able to make that decision wisely.
Yeah. Yeah. Because at that time, man, you got to think the school that I went to, they were not a scholarship program. So the time that I was investing in school, it wasn't like they were giving me money to go. So I had my academics to fall back on, which is why I always harp academics. I had my academics to fall back on to where I was able to still continue to go to school. But if I'm going to invest that type of time on the field, then it's taken away from, my daughter. So I had made a choice early in the game that, family was priority.
That's great. But I'm actually glad because that moves me to my next question, where you kind of went to the end of your football career and now coaching. And all of your players know how great you are with coaching and, relating to the, come on, but relating to the players and kind of getting the best out of us when we feel like we might not have any more in the tank. So I just want to get a little bit of background for your coaching and all the levels that you coached at.
So I have coached from youth all the way to college. And when I say youth, I started out with 10 and 11-year-olds. Like, for example, Miles Sanders, who's at the Philadelphia Eagles. I coached him when he was 10 years old back in Pittsburgh. So I coached babies, man. And literally, I'm a guy that can say I worked my way all the way up, and I've seen it on every level except for NFL. I even coached women. And that's what actually got me into the coaching game. A lot of people don't know that. My mom, after I got done playing, my mom wanted to take a stab at it. And I happened to go with her because we have a professional women's team in Pittsburgh as well called the Pittsburgh Passion. So I happened to go down there, and I was like, I don't want anybody just coaching my mom. So let me see who's coaching. And what ended up happening was the staff had gotten fired. So there was some space for me to get an opportunity to coach, and I took it. And I've been coaching ever since. So my first job was coaching women for the Pittsburgh Passion and coaching my mom. And then after that was done, I jumped into coaching the youth and literally built my way all the way up, man. So I went from, when I tell you every level, I coached JV. I was a head coach for JV. I was a JV offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. Then I jumped to high school position coach. My first high school varsity job was just film. All I did was just watch film. And then I worked my way up. So Terry Smith, who was the assistant head coach at Penn State, he gave me my first varsity job at a school back at home called Gateway High School, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And he told me, you'll always have a job if you want to watch film. So if you can break down film, nobody wants to do it, you'll always have a job. And so coincidentally, my first college job was doing what? Breaking down film. So I had volunteered at Shaw University initially to break down film. And when Coach Massey seen that I was a pretty decent running back coach, he brought me aboard as a running back coach. But at first I volunteered just doing film.
That's great. That's amazing. And I'm glad that you put an emphasis on how you started at one level and you worked your way up, gradually to that, to the college level. And I think that's important for all the viewers to take, with anything that you do, you don't just start off at the top or,
No.
and the big leagues right off. There's always
No.
something where you got to start off at a bottom level, build your way up, make connections. Like you said, you named some of the people that you've coached and some of the assistants you have coached under. So that's important that you put an emphasis on that, kind of working your way up to be where you want to be. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's amazing. Now, I want to get into a burning question. Question that has been in my heart, that has been on any player that that you were the head coach at Enloe, and that's what was your mindset? A lot of times, we understand we know what our mindset was when we were at Enload before your
Mm-hmm.
reign. It was a mindset that wasn't about winning or about a certain culture that we need. So I want to understand, what was your mindset when you walked into the building, first day as a head coach? How were you going to change this program for the better?
So my first year at Enload, I was an assistant with David Green. And what I seen was potential. So